Let's just do it. Ladies and gentlemen, we've exhausted our options trying to fix the AV. I apologize for the echo. We'll do what we can to sort of minimize it, but we're just going to have to accept that this is the situation right now and move forward. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Board of Adjustments for July 22nd, 2020. Thank you for joining us. We didn't expect this much excitement this early, but we're off to a roaring start. So, let's introduce our board for tonight. We have with us by way of web camera, Board Member Jack Confer, Vice Chair Jim Frazee, Board Member Ron Keegi, Board Member Richard Watson, Board Member Robert Miller, and Board Member Whitney Baker. We are also joined in council chambers by Mr. Steve Abrahamson, Brittany Nelson. We have with us on the call Mr. Ryan LeVake and Robbie Aaron. And I am Chairman David Lyon. I'm losing my place here. We have one item of business on our agenda tonight. Oh, that's what I'm forgetting. You know, I can never. There we go. I apologize. I seem to never be able to do a meeting without forgetting something. Yes, you have that. Okay. All right. We are looking for our preamble text. Well, all right. There we are. Okay, so let's do this COVID message here because we haven't heard enough of those recently. Due to the COVID-19, we are obeying Governor Ducey's social distancing requirements. We have a full quorum with us via WebEx. The public may go to the City of Tempe website, Board of Adjustment page, and fill out the comment card for their comments on today's meeting until public comments are deemed closed. So if you wish to make comment on our case tonight, go to that website, the Tempe website, Board of Adjustment page, and there should be a button there that you can click to join us. The City of Tempe Board of Adjustment is authorized by the Arizona revised statutes and the City of Tempe zoning ordinance. Its function is to grant relief where a literal enforcement of the zoning ordinance would result in an unnecessary property hardship, to interpret provisions of the zoning ordinance for variances, and to hear appeals from any person or city official aggrieved by the decision of a person responsible for the enforcement of the zoning ordinance, i.e. zoning administrator and hearing officer abatements. The board has the City of Tempe Community Development staff summary reports on the item being considered at this meeting and will use this report in their deliberations. So let's see now. We've done our staff introductions. Indeed. All right, so our first item of business will be to address our meeting minutes from the previous meeting. All board members have had an opportunity to review those meeting minutes. So I will entertain a motion regarding the approval of said meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion regarding that approval, please?
I'll make a motion to approve.
All right, I believe that was Vice Chair Jim Frazee. Do I hear a second on that approval?
I second the motion.
Okay, and seconded by Board Member Baker. We're going to call down the line for your votes. Board Member Conver, how do you vote? Oh, we were able to get him on the microphone. Can you give that to us one more time, Board Member Confer? We were not able to hear anything.
I vote aye.
Thank you, sir. Vice Chair Frazee, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Okay. Board Member Kege, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Board Member Watson.
Now that I'm unmuted, aye.
Indeed. Board Member Miller.
I abstain.
Okay, and Board Member Baker.
I vote aye.
I also vote aye, and so the motion passes 6-0 with Board Member Miller abstaining. All right. So having taken care of that piece of business, let's move on to our other item agenda. We have the hub. It is our tradition that we usually ask our applicant to present first so that they can frame the issue as they choose, and then we ask our staff contact to come and provide the city's point of view. Do we have Mr. Michael Bronska with us on the call? I believe they are unmuting now.
This is Michael Bronska.
Lovely. Thank you for joining us. Would you like to tell us about your appeal, please? Sorry, your application.
Chair, board, and staff, thank you for inviting me this evening to speak on behalf of our project known as the Hub. My name is Michael Bronska. I'm the managing member of Hardy Tempe LLC, the owner of this property. The Hub is a redevelopment of an old, obsolete, and abandoned warehouse. It's located in the newly formed Maker District. We're proud to be the first redevelopment in this district. We purchased the property in May of 2019 in order to renew and rejuvenate the old building and to showcase the opportunities of repurposing this older building in this historically industrial area, hopefully spurring further redevelopment and creating a vibrant, attractive, mixed-use zone that complements the history of the area of Tempe, as well as supporting economic development. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we purchased the property, the Hub, in May of 2019. We purchased it from University Realty. I'm a professor in the Masters of Real Estate Development program at ASU. And this was actually used as one of our synthesis projects. And I was intrigued with what I viewed as a tremendous opportunity for two reasons. One is its specific location, but also because it was located within an opportunity zone. The actual Maker District came along after we had purchased the property. But you know, we have so since May of 2019, we've submitted our site plan approvals, and we commenced demolition of the interior in October of 2019. We started construction of our site and exterior redevelopment in December of 2019. When we're all done, we'll spend over $10 million in the redevelopment of the property. My partner, Brad Hall, and I have a mission to create environmentally sustainable, economically feasible, and socially responsible projects. So it's not just economically driven. For example, I'll give you a couple of examples of the things that we're most proud of. One is we've carefully designed and engineered a sunshade structure around the building. And I invite any of you to drive by and see how it operates, because it shades the windows along the south and the eastern portion of the property. In addition to that, we have almost half of our parking lot is constructed with a pervious surface. We've used a stabilized decomposed granite pavement that will promote, will reduce groundwater or rainwater, stormwater runoff, and it will also reduce the overall heat island effect. What we're probably most proud of is that we have constructed a 14,000 square foot, we call it outdoor workspace. And it's located on the north side of the building. It actually faces all of the future employee parking and is divided into several zones. And it's covered with, the 14,000 square feet is covered with photovoltaics that will generate enough power to offset the energy use in the building by well over 60% on an annualized basis. Underneath this is areas that we consider tenants will use for conferencing. Even today and this week, when the temperatures are at 109 degrees, and we're not done yet, but you stand underneath this solar structure, which is not covered entirely with panels, but we've left it, I call it, it's like the light through a forest. So the panels aren't set tight to each other, but there are openings that allow the natural light to come in and filter throughout the space. But it's created this wonderful environment. And believe it or not, standing underneath there, and I haven't done a temperature check, but just being there is 10 to 15 degrees cooler because of the panels are set at 19 feet or almost 20 feet above ground. So that's one of the things that obviously we're very proud of. So give you some of the technical details. The property is 4.3 acres. It's a single-story building. It was built in the 1960s and added on in the 1970s. It's slump block masonry with a steel frame roof structure. It's 50,000 square feet. We've actually cut new windows in around the building. Those openings have been filled with a high efficiency glazing system filled with argon, and believe it or not, again, you stand in front of the window, you on the south side of the building, you don't really feel a lot of heat. So there, we call it two different sides of the building. There was the first phase, which was built in the late 60s, that runs north and south along Hardy. That's about 17,000 square feet. And then a second phase was added that runs east and west along Alameda. That's 33,000 square feet. What we liked about it was, number one, the unique structural system on the inside, the height. We know that we weren't going to use it for warehouse or industrial purposes, but our intent is to develop this as an office space for a single tenant. Fits really well with the COVID environment that we're living with now. The property, it's located at the northwest corner of Hardy and Alameda. The site has approximately 370 lineal feet along Alameda and 260 feet along Hardy, pursuant to the zoning requirements. There's a 25-foot setback along Alameda, and there's a 40-foot setback along Hardy. Along Alameda, within the setback, nearly the entire setback, has been filled with numerous underground utilities and services, probably from the 1960s or before. As you can probably imagine, SRP irrigation is one of those, and we'll talk about that in just a minute. As customary, there are restrictive easements that cover all of these utilities. The restrictions include the size and height of any kind of planting, the construction within the easement, overhead clearances, and setbacks for any construction that may be acceptable. The easements run the length of the property along Hardy and Alameda. The easements cover most of the setback area along the majority of the length of the building, which is 320 feet, by the way. The building itself is 320 feet. And the easements, as I said, cover that area. Within that 25-foot setback, just to give you an example, the following utilities are covered by the easement. There's a 30-inch irrigation line that's owned by the USA and managed by SRP. There's a 20-inch water line that is owned by the city of Tempe. There's a 12-inch water line that's owned by the city of Tempe. There's a 6-conduit fiber duct bank that's located behind the irrigation line easement, and that's owned by Cox. There's a 10-foot SRP easement for electric, and then there's another 15-foot SRP easement for electric. So as you can see, and I'm happy to take you there, we were challenged. But let me continue. As a part of our redevelopment, so we're replacing an old oil-filled transformer with a new transformer that will upgrade the power to the property. In addition to the new transformer, their SRP has 2 switch cabinets and 1 smaller transformer that actually powers the street lights and the traffic signals. And as you know, as customary, SRP does not permit planting greater than 12 inches at mature height adjacent to the electrical room or to areas adjacent to certain transformers and switch cabinets so that they can pull wire. So the city approved the plans for construction in December 2019 after we had received planning and zoning approval. Civil engineering, they stipulated that the trees planted along Alameda were to be placed no closer than 16 feet from any water or gas line. But we don't have gas, which is good. We have that on Hardy, but we don't have it on Alameda. But as you can see, we have a 30-inch irrigation line, a 20-inch water line, and a 12-inch water line. And setting that back, with even those utilities being placed at the right-of-way line, 16 feet would leave 9 feet from the face of the building to the closest location we could plant a tree. But nevertheless, we explored a number of other options, which we developed. We presented these options to both development services and engineering, which we thought was a brilliant idea. And that was to actually put 10 trees in planters adjacent to the right-of-way. And that would have been fabulous. We actually purchased in anticipation because of the lead time. We purchased those planters. which were quite expensive, by the way, because we wanted them to be materials that would withstand the elements, certainly the heat. And we presented that as a concept, and both development services and engineering thought that that was a really creative idea that solved the problem, and we moved forward with that idea until we ran into signing easements and license agreements with Salt River Project. And we all know that Salt River Project is divided into two different companies, one that deals with water and one that deals with power. And the irrigation, because the irrigation line is so old that SRP rejected our idea of planting anything on top of the irrigation line. Now, that in itself, as you remember, that's a 30-inch irrigation line, and you have to be, if I recall, I'd have to check my notes, but it's a minimum of 12 inches from the edge of the irrigation line. That puts it 42 inches from the, well, it's about 1 foot back of the right-of-way. So that puts it a little over 4 feet plus or minus that we could put the planters. The problem with that was that there's a power line that runs through there, and there's fiber optic lines that run through there. So, so we had no other choice but to request this variance. And, you know, we've presented to staff, which has been a very good experience. Everybody at staff level has been very supportive and understanding of the situation that we are in. But what we've presented is a thoughtful design for landscape. And while we understand that we are not planting trees, we're creating a lush desert landscape that is consistent and meets the criteria of SRP and all of the easements that we have by creating a field, alternating fields of ocotillo, giant hesperella, and other desert varieties. And it'll be a very unique and attractive landscape. So the request for this variance is really simply a result of the special circumstance. It's there's no room to plant a tree because we need room between wherever we planted a tree and the building to allow for the tree to grow. We do have it's a 7-foot cantilevered sunscreen. As I mentioned earlier, we have this 7-foot cantilevered sunscreen along the south elevation. And so combined with that, we certainly couldn't afford to have trees grow up into that. And frankly, the trees, based on, you know, the advice of our landscape architect, would possibly undermine the footing, put too much water near the building, cause problems because of the reflective heat off of the building. So there were a number of things that were happening there. So there was no room to plant the tree and meet all of the restrictive covenants imposed by the various easements. We're not asking, you know, this is not a grant of special privilege. We're not asking, this is not self-imposed. We're investing over $10 million into this redevelopment, and frankly, planting 11 trees is a de minimis cost. I mean, at the end of the day, when we were first talking about this, I said, I'll donate I'll give the city of Tempe 11 trees and you can go plant them in a park. Or I'll give you $1,500 and you can use it for replacing trees somewhere else. I mean, as kind of an in lieu payment. But we went through this process nonetheless. So we're not asking for relief as a result of any kind of monetary. It's really simply just not having the ability to meet the specific requirement of planting one tree for every 30 feet along the right-of-way line.
Yep.
So with that, and I appreciate your time, and I hope I didn't ramble too much. We appreciate you inviting us to discuss this, and we look forward to answering any questions.
All right, thank you, Mr. Bronska. Board members, do you have any questions for our applicant? All right, seeing none, I guess we will thank you, Mr. Bronska, and we may come back to you later. Let's move on and hear from our staff member, Mr. Aaron. You with us, Mr. Aaron?
Yes, sir.
All right, if you would make your presentation, please.
My presentation going to be put up there.
Mr. Aaron, can you see the PowerPoint slide?
I can see it on the little screen that's in the council chambers there.
And that's not sufficient for you? He sees the camera view of the dais.
I don't know why it's up on the screen. Up to media services to put that up on the screen. Sorry.
Coming up. No, we still see a view of the camera of the dais. There we are.
There we go.
All right, take it away, Mr. Aaron.
My name is Robbie Aaron. I'm planner in community development. Thank you, board members. The request, as Mr. Bronska stated very eloquently, is a variance to reduce the required number of street trees along Alameda Drive from 11, which is 1 per 30 feet of street frontage, to 0. Next slide, please. This is an aerial view of the area. You can see that it's on the northwest corner of Alameda and Hardy, and we're focused on the Alameda street frontage. Next slide. Here's some site context photos. These are of the corner of Alameda and Hardy. The area on the bottom right facing west is the street frontage that we are talking about. These photos do not reflect the way the building currently looks. As Mr. Bronska stated, it has been under construction for quite some time. There are a lot of windows. It is now a different color, but this is essentially minus some of those trees and bushes that are no longer there due to construction. That is what the street frontage looks like. Next slide, please. Again, facing the other way, the one on the top right corner is facing east, back down toward the intersection of Hardy and Alameda. Next slide. As Mr. Bronska went over, there are several easements. USA irrigation water line, it's 30 inches, managed by SRP. 2 City of Tempe managed water lines. The SRP electrical lines, which serve the building, the street lights, and the traffic signal, as well as Cox has fiber optics next to the building as well. Next slide. Here's the landscape plan that Mr. Bronska alluded to. As you can see on the south side, this landscape plan north is facing to the right to give you a sense. There are the 9 trees on the south side, on the east side along Hardy, and then on the south side they are doing a lot of landscaping. It's not just going to be dirt and some decomposed granite. They are doing a very nice desert landscape that will be unique to the area. You can also see the amount of trees they are planting in other places on the site. They're planting a lot of trees in the parking lot, as well as some near the kind of patio area. Next slide, please. This is a zoomed in version to kind of get a better idea of what they're doing. Next slide. A neighborhood meeting is typically required for a variance request. However, since there are no residential zoning districts, neighborhood associations, or HOAs within the quarter mile of this property, the neighborhood meeting requirement was waived. However, staff has received 2 emails in opposition of the request. As I stated earlier, I received 1 email letting me know the signs were down and that there was opposition, and we received a follow-up email with a letter from that neighbor that so happened to ride his bike near the property in opposition. And then there was another opposition that went through council communicator in opposition to this request. Both oppositions were basically stating that they felt like that the trees were needed in this kind of environment, especially along a sidewalk, that due to the general plan designation becoming the mixed-use industrial recently, and this bringing the Broadway Makers District, that we're really trying to revitalize the area, and that putting trees in the area are an important part of that. Both stated that there could be some other potential way to plant trees, maybe a lesser caliper tree as opposed to the normal size that we require. But as Mr. Bronska stated, that's due to everything that's going on underneath the ground. It's basically impossible to put trees, and even when broached with the idea of placing planters above ground with trees in them to satisfy the requirement, SRP still stated that their water line could not support that weight. So here we are. Next slide. Staff is recommending approval subject to our standard conditions. As Mr. Bronska stated, this is not a special circumstance. This will not cause, this was not imposed by, self-imposed. and it really meets all the variance criteria that we look for. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them at this time.
All right. Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Aaron? All right. Seeing none, we will thank you, Mr. Aaron. Well put. Mr. Bronska, can we speak with you again for a moment?
Yes, you may. I am here.
All right. So if you like, you may have a chance to respond to what you've heard from city staff, although Mr. Aaron has spoken very much in your favor. But nevertheless, you are allowed to respond.
Thank you. I think between the two of us, we've stated a pretty strong case. I hope that you and the board agree.
All right, well put. Vice Chair Jim Frazee, do you have a question for our applicant?
Thank you, Chairman Lyons. Actually, I did. And so I was just curious, in those pictures, it was showing, were there originally trees in this easement, and did you remove those during the remodeling of the property?
The answer is yes. There were trees that were planted on top of the easement, and SRP asked us to remove them.
Okay. And then the easement, these, the water line, the irrigation line, that is between the, I guess, north side of the end of the sidewalk and your building, where all of these items are currently located, correct?
That is correct. And so I should tell you that while there were trees there, they still weren't compliant with the 1 tree per 30 foot.
Okay. And I guess the last question for me, and maybe this was also with staff, I don't see a problem with this being a pedestrian walkway. I guess, was there any bus stop, or is there any bus stop along this Alameda portion?
There's no bus stop along Alameda. There is a bus stop at Hardy and Alameda on Hardy, on the east side of Hardy, and on the south, so on the northeast corner of Hardy and Alameda, and at the southwest corner of Hardy and Alameda. It's my understanding that the city is endeavoring to do some improvements on Alameda as a part of the improvement to the Maker District.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Vice Chair Frazee. Mr. Bronska, I do have one question for you, if you will indulge. Well, I guess it's not a question as much as a statement. I like the offer that you made to consider donating trees to the city of Tempe for a park or some such thing. I think that's a noble gesture, but I will say that I don't think that we can entertain that as part of this request. If we were to do so, I think that that might be seen as tantamount to purchasing an approval or some such thing. And frankly, I don't think you need that in order to get our approval. However, having said that, if it is something you're interested in doing, I would encourage you to contact Mr. Abrahamson or another member of staff and work out some terms whereby you can donate said trees, and the city of Tempe would certainly thank you for that. And I thank you for offering that, but just the same, we'll need to move forward without considering that as part of the motion. Any more questions for our applicant? All right, seeing none, we will thank you, Mr. Bronska.
Thank you.
Okay. So, board members, what are your thoughts? Oh, that's right. I forgot. Public comments. Do we have, Mr. Abrahamson, do we have anyone with us from the public that wishes to make comment? All right, it looks like the answer is no, so we will close the public comment section. Thank you for the reminder, Ms. Nelson. All right, so now we'll come back to the board's Board's deliberation. Board members, what do you think? Board Member Kiki, please.
Yes, reviewing this application, the restrictions that are applied because of the utilities in place, obviously were not any doing of the applicant, and so that certainly helps with the idea that this is not something self-imposed. In my opinion, this is pretty much a textbook example of what a variance is there for. You have the ordinance requirements, you have special circumstances, things that are beyond your control, and so with that, I would definitely support this application.
Okay, other thoughts? Seeing none, I will chime in and say that I agree 100% with Board Member Kiki. So, unless anyone has any other thoughts to offer, I would entertain a motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the variance as presented by staff.
Okay, do I hear a second, please?
Second.
All right, so motion to approve from Board Member Miller and seconded by Board Member Kiki. We will vote down the line, please. Board Member Comfer, how do you vote?
Aye.
Vice Chair Frazee, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Board Member Kiki?
I vote aye.
Board Member Watson?
I vote aye.
Board Member Miller?
I vote aye.
Board Member Baker?
I vote aye.
And I vote aye as well. The motion passes 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Bronska. Thank you, board members. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our regular items for tonight's agenda. Mr. Abrahamson, do we have any announcements that we need to make regarding future projects or meetings?
Yes, Chairman Lyon, members of the board, thank you. Just want to let everyone know that we do have one item on the agenda for next month. That meeting will be on Wednesday, August, not on here, is it 24th? Red? Do you know? Bear with me a moment, I'm sorry, it wasn't on my sheet. 26th, thank you, August 26th. At 5:30, we'll have the study session, 6 o'clock, the regular meeting. The item on the menu, or on the agenda, is Discount Tire at 1709 East Southern Avenue. It is a variance request for an increase of maximum lot coverage from 50 to 75 feet. That's all staff announcements.
All right, thank you, Mr. Abrahamson. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned. Thank you.